I'd like to call this regular council meeting to order. Before we proceed, I want to acknowledge that the land upon which we are gathered is the traditional territory of the Adirondack, Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe people. We are the beneficiaries of ancient agreements, such as the dish with one spoon between the Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee, who agreed to share the abundance of the land through peace, friendship, and mutual respect. The two-row wampum, by which the Haudenosaunee welcomed the settlers and agreed to share the land in mutual respect, and the Treaty of Niagara, considered a fundamental document by First Nations in all future relations and treaties with the British. We recognize that we have a responsibility to be stewards of the land in cooperation and collaboration with the Indigenous peoples, not only for one generation, but for all generations to come. We understand that we have an obligation to learn the lessons of our history, educate ourselves about the experiences of the Indigenous people, and seek opportunities to heal the wounds that will result in reconciliation with our Indigenous sisters and brothers. Many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people live and work in Fort Erie. We stand with all Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship of the lands on which we live. We have the good fortune to live in a land of such abundance, diversity, and beauty. Let us be vigilant in protecting Turtle Island. Would you all please rise for the invocation?
We meet to serve our community and endeavor to be worthy custodians of all that has been entrusted to us. Let us be concerned only for what will promote good government. May we bring to our council chamber minds that think and hearts that feel, so that in our deliberations we may display imagination, wisdom, and courage, and the will to do our work for the good of all.
Thank you. And Madam Deputy Clerk, the roll call, please.
All members of council are present, Your Worship.
Thank you. We have an addendum this evening. It adds correspondence received from Niagara Health from the President and CEO, excuse me, which was received on Friday. We also have notices of motion from Councillor Lewis with respect to Niagara South Hospital funding, the Fort Erie Urgent Care Centre summer hours of operation, and a matter relative to the Chief Executive Officer and the Board of Directors of Niagara Health. So I have some brief announcements. The first of which relates to the extreme heat warning that has been issued for Niagara due to the high temperatures that we're experiencing now and will be for the next several days. Wanted to announce that Fort Erie has multiple cooling centers, including the Fort Erie Leisureplex, which is open from 8 a.m. until 5 p.m., and all three of the Fort Erie Public Library branches during their hours of operation, which can be found at their website, www.fepl.ca. So fepl.ca. We also have spray pad locations at Douglas Park on Aberdeen Street, at Ferndale Park on Ferndale Street, Crystal Ridge Park, Stevensville Memorial Park on Stevensville Road, behind the Memorial Hall, and the Sugar Bowl spray pad down in the Sugar Bowl. We also have beach fronts, but we're asked to caution everyone to drink plenty of water before you feel thirsty, because that's when you start to dehydrate. Wear sunscreen, avoid extended periods outside, and stay cool in shaded areas. With respect to the correspondence that we received from Lynn Guerrero, it's interesting that we will receive this correspondence. It's on our agenda to receive, and there's been no formal request for additional funding, but it's actually somewhat tone deaf, but I presume that there was a strategy in sending this to council in view of the motion, Councillor Lewis, that you've put forward. And I would only point out that the town of Fort Erie has contributed not only directly to this build, and that's a matter of discussion for this evening, but also through our Niagara Regional contribution, which was $44.5 million. So that's about, according to my calculations, around $3.1 million of Fort Erie taxpayer money that will be contributed. So it's not as if Fort Erie hasn't been interested in supporting this. new construction. It obviously brings secondary and tertiary healthcare services much closer to Fort Erie than the St. Catharines General Hospital, on the one hand. On the other hand, aside from the money, there's a service cost to the residents of Fort Erie that we would have to take into account. With respect to the Premier, who was in town last week and made a statement that I know isn't necessarily reflective of what his true views are, but he said, in reference to questions about the Fort Erie Urgent Care Center, I apologize if it shuts down for a day in the summer, but I'm a big advocate to make sure we have proper health care in this region. I believe that the second part of that statement is probably more accurate than the first, because I'm sure the Premier is aware that it's not being closed for one day in the summer. And I hope that his interest in improving the health care of everyone in the Niagara region and everyone in Ontario takes greater precedence than a glib comment of that nature. Finally, I want to wish everyone a happy Canada Day next Tuesday. And there are some activities going on in Fort Erie. Canada Day at the races, as an example, which starts at noon at the Fort Erie racetrack. Councillor Lewis, there's a Canada Day civic celebration in the Grove.
No, Your Worship, that was actually.
So that's, okay, so that isn't going forward. There is Canada Day fireworks down between the Old Fort and the Peace Bridge, or Mather Arch, and that starts around dusk. Probably 9:30 would be a good time to make sure you're there. And I think that's it for announcements. So that takes us to declarations of pecuniary interest. Are there any declarations? There being none, there are no notices of upcoming public meetings. The Regional Councillor in Sin, I see you're here and you have a report, I presume.
Good evening, Mayor Redekop. Just a short one tonight. Mayor Redekop, councillors, staff, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. A presentation was given to Corporate Services Committee last week regarding Hospice Niagara. The Wilson House, as it's going to be named, project that will be a hospice here in Fort Erie. The site for the development is going to be right next to the new Gilmore Lodge, the corner of Garrison Road and King Street. The groundbreaking ceremony will be this summer, with the anticipation of opening in late 2026, early 2027. The draft renderings of the facility and the rooms presented really stood out as to the attention to detail and to the comfort of the residents. Each room will have a sliding door so the bed can be moved into a courtyard for the residents to get into the sunshine and to meet with other residents. The rooms are equipped with fireplaces and other amenities to make the last stages of life as comfortable as possible. The capital campaign goal currently sits at 87% funded. Contributions have come from the region, like the town of Fort Erie, Ministry of Health, the community, and corporate donors. The region is moving forward with Hospice Niagara. We'll be receiving a 20-year lease on the property with a 10-year extension at the end of the term. And just to note that Hospice Niagara has been helping residents in the Niagara region for the last 17 years, and they are desperate for volunteers. So if anybody in the audience or anybody listening, they are really looking for people to help out. Last week, I had the opportunity to speak with several cabinet ministers, as the mayor and other councillors did. MPP Stan Cho, Minister of Tourism, Culture and Gaming of Ontario, MPP Todd McCarthy, the Minister of Environment, Conservation and Parks, and MPP Sam Oosterhoff, Associate Minister of Energy Intensive Industries. I made sure that they all heard about other issues revolving our town and the issues that we face. The official ribbon cutting ceremony for Gilmore Lodge Long-Term Care Home and Community Hub is set for July 4th at 11 a.m. The facility has been open, and the Community Hub continues to put on a fantastic program for residents of Fort Erie. Once again, Public Health will be continuing the beach surveillance program. The authority for public health to test the waters are provided on the Ontario Health Protection and Promotion Act. There are 19 beaches in the region and 12 being on Lake Erie. The beach water is to be sampled at least once per week, and some being twice. There are 5 samples taken at each beach and are tested for E. coli. Public Health is using their website for the warnings and test results. The beach water testing website is on the Niagara Region website, and it's suggested that those who are going to go into the water just give it a check to see if things are all right. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Encina. Any questions, Councillor Dubanow?
Just a really quick question, Your Worship, through you to Regional Councillor Encina. What time is the ribbon cutting at Gilmore Lodge on the 4th? Do you have that handy?
11 o'clock.
11 o'clock?
11 a.m., yes.
Thank you.
Any others? Councillor Noyes.
Thank you, Mayor Redekop, through you to Councillor Encina. There were some legislative changes in regards to planning, where the region no longer needs to be involved in certain aspects of planning. And I understand there were 14 employees that were basically doing that job for the region. I'm just wondering, how has it decreased the cost to the people who are paying the fees from a regional perspective?
Councillor Encina.
Through you, Mayor Redekop, to Councillor Noyes. That has been a bone of contention at the region. From what I understand that has taken place is individuals in the planning department have been shifted around, and according to the deputy CAO, they still perform a certain number of planning functions for a couple municipalities that use that. Other than that, it is a really good question and one that has been brought up to the CAO, and I expect that to be brought up again during our budget sessions coming forward.
Thank you. I appreciate that answer. If you can recall, I guess that's a question, what happened with the recycling when the region was no longer involved with the Blue Box program? Is it a similar situation to that the fees, that the taxpayers aren't seeing any relief?
Through you, Mayor Redekop. I understand the Blue Box program through the province is changing again. There was an announcement, I believe, the last couple of days. So it's going to be really interesting to see how that affects. What's coming forward is the fact that they were the non-eligible group, which were the community churches, businesses, BA, and all that area, were not going to be covered. We're not going to be picked up. That has now been changed by the province, from my understanding. So it's going to be interesting. Yes, that's a bone of contention with me at the region with regards to expenses and things like that. So that is being watched. And I know the mayor gets tired of hearing about me sometimes in our budget meetings, but I'm sure I'll be bringing that up again.
So I don't think that was the gist of your question. I think the gist of your question was about the planning staff and whether there were any reductions in costs.
Exactly, but I think Councilman City basically, what I'm inferring, correct me if I'm wrong, they're just being moved around.
Absolutely. That's exactly what happened as far as I'm concerned.
Anyone else? Thank you very much, Councillor Encina.
Thank you.
That then takes us to presentations and delegations, and we have Edward Zara, the Director, Customer Experience, Niagara Transit Commission here with some assistance. And safety in numbers, is that the deal? Good evening. So I don't know if you know how much time you have. We usually, and you're going to get through all of this in 10 minutes?
Do our best.
Perfect. That's why I like you, Mr. Zara. And you have Jordan Hamilton with you.
We do. So that saves a minute off the introductions. Quick item, are we able to control the presentation, or would it be through
You
staff?
can control the presentation, but if you do have problems, Cole is right there.
Through here or through the mouse?
Either works for you, and there's also a keyboard below you.
Perfect. Thank you. So thank you very much through the Mayor Redekop and Fort Erie Council for having us here today.
Just so your voice picks up on
Thank you. Appreciate it. Make sure we got that. So we're here today at the invitation and request of the council here through the Accessibility Committee to clarify some questions that were brought forward through the motion sent to the Niagara Transit Chair on April the 1st of this year. So quickly, I will, as mentioned to the mayor, I'll do the best possible here to get through the information that we've provided for you through today. I will advise and sort of mention right off the hop if there is anything for further clarification if we happen to get lost in time. You can send them to my direct attention and we can get those information and answers to you right away. So we'll capture what was sent forward in the motion today through council. But quickly, we'll provide a quick service overview for those watching and get an understanding today of what the service that is provided here at Fort Erie through our contractor, Voyago, on the micro and specialized transit services. So Fort Erie has 250 registered specialized transit customers that are currently active in using the system today. Our local transit, as some are aware, is through our contractor provider, Voyago. And Fort Erie, through Voyago's composition of 38 vehicles, 7 are specifically tagged to Fort Erie and service Fort Erie municipal boundaries proper, inclusive of a garage dispatch location through the contractor, where in addition, additional vehicles are dispatched from this location, making them available to residents for regional and intra-municipal trips respectively. So getting into the questions that were requested from us and providing that clarification through the motion. The number of daily booking slots available for Fort Erie and whether this is a fixed allocation. There is no fixed allocation. The system that we use and the software that is utilized for the booking systems is dynamically assigned through the rides and how they're booked in that program on the day or in advance as communicated to our customers. As mentioned, Fort Erie does benefit from the 7 tagged vehicles and overflow access from the vehicles that service the greater Niagara region. The overall booking and allocation process, as alluded, our RideCo system or software provider under Voyago's operation are best matched through the algorithms through available vehicles within the closest proximity, service zone, and the trip details provided by the customer. More clarification on the dispatch location, that 13 vehicles are dispatched out of Fort Erie for the start of service and return into Fort Erie's dispatch garage. 7 of which are tagged for municipal boundaries, and 6 that serve the greater part of the regional pool. Of that, more specifically, 3 of them are of the wheelchair accessible vehicle types. So the performance metrics and policies regarding abandoned ridership. One of the positives is that there's been no abandoned rides in Fort Erie in the past 4, now 5 months since some of these points were made. Niagara Transit and Voyago collectively and actively intervene to reassign trips for those that are potentially at risk of abandonment and communicate that with the affected riders. We have included that information as of recent since our meeting on June the 5th with myself, fellow colleagues of Niagara Transit, the GM, the Mayor of Fort Erie, staff, and the Accessibility Chair. That information is readily available on our website and through the app for customers to be advised of the process in detail. Complaints specific to Fort Erie riders and how they've been addressed. All of our complaints through Fort Erie or any other municipality for the service, regardless of its nature, are tracked in a centralized location and database so that our response times and resolutions are qualitative, quantitative, and actively monitored all the way through the process, and accountability is held throughout not only my team, but my colleagues as well. Through ridership data, including number of attempted bookings where no ride is available, that data is tracked through our software provider. We have made the request specifically to delineate those from Fort Erie. It is a broader picture that is provided to us as service in whole. Once that is available, I will make that for Fort Erie Council as soon as possible. And the Niagara Transit consult with persons with disabilities before implementing any policy that directly affects with disabilities. We do fully support this and have done so in the past. This, as discussed on the June 5th, was specific to the driveway policy implemented by our contractor. We did clarify that that was implemented through the contractor, and we've had active discussions and continue to do so with our training department to better establish a collective approach to the policy, one that meets the needs of both our customers and the service delivery in whole. So on the ridership, you'll see a couple of graphs here, tables on the right-hand side. This is a good news story for Fort Erie. Fort Erie has experienced 3 consecutive years of growth in the commingled transit ridership through the data that we had available and have been tracking since inception of the amalgamation on January 1st. In 2025, that marks the highest volume to date of over 50% increase from the pre-amalgamated service levels in Fort Erie. Was asked a breakdown of the additional $3 million in funding and the services that Fort Erie taxpayers receive in return. That $3 million of increased funding increases the expanded vehicle hours and the evening services provided to the town in the municipality, the network-wide reliability, including the full-day style operations as opposed to the on-book trip style, the additional vehicles that have used to support the service increases as mentioned prior, and further to that, the detailed breakdown, if necessary, will be provided and included in our next capital and operating budget cycle later this year. The cost of the additional vehicle that was allocated in March was absorbed into the operational budgets at no additional cost. The request to provide the proposed 2 additional vehicles and our dedicated fixed route service has been captured in the master plan that went to the Niagara Transit Board on June 17th. The details of that plan were approved by the board, and the feasibility and ridership viability are core to this evaluation and can be assessed through that report. There were concerns raised by the community and the Accessibility Committee specifically. The issues raised by the Accessibility Advisory Committee regarding dedicated vehicles, booking times, pickup and delivery locations for persons with disabilities, and service hours. So for clarity, those that were aware, excuse me, the complaints that we are aware, as mentioned prior to, are tracked and we are address them promptly. I can attest that any complaint or concern that has been brought forward through to my team, those that do not require a lengthy investigation based on the material provided, has been responded to in 72 hours or less in most cases, as mentioned. The booking hours described align with the regionally aligned services of 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. It's recognized that there was an hour of service that was questioned from the 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. period. In review of that hour specifically, it approximately equated to 19% of the ridership prior to the service differences, and that is data up from January 2023 until the amalgamated services and commingled contracts started July 1st of 2024, and then adopting Fort Erie in October later that same year. Again, with the policies that were described and put in challenge to staff, when we met on June 5th, we did have our contractor Voyago there to clarify the nature and intent of their policy. We did take feedback away from that meeting to work with our training department for Voyago to adopt and work with us on an approach that works for both their business and ours within the region. So we do have some appendices that were attached, one of which was the metrics in Fort Erie for 2025 of first quarter. The second quarter and subsequent will follow in later board reports to the NTC board. And that would capture the presentation. We're welcoming any questions. I think we did it under 10.
You did. Was there another presentation you were going to make, or is that just additional information for us?
That is it, sir.
Okay, that's perfect. Thank you very much for the information. Any members of council have any questions? Councillor Noyes and then Councillor Flagg.
Thank you, Mayor Redekop, to you too, Mr. Hazara. Thank you for your presentation. I also sit on the Accessibility Committee. I'm the council rep there. There was a lot of growing pains. And yours is customer experience, I think. Did you or did anyone reach out to those people who were abandoned at the beginning? Like the last 4 months, before 4 months, let's say 6 months ago, those riders that were abandoned, did you What did you do for them?
Through you, the mayor. We did reach out to them. We did have growing pains as well in the beginning. We recognize that with no discredit at all. During the beginning with our contractor, we worked with what was prescribed on an abandoned ride policy and procedure to follow, and communication was to be established with that customer. There were instances at the beginning where customers were left without a ride from the service provider, staff, the booking reps, the management team that are here today as well, ensured that that ride was captured at the best available opportunity. But I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge the truth, and there were situations where the customer elected to have a ride on their own account and not provided through Niagara Transit based on timing.
I'm sorry, I just can't let that stay. There are several incidents that I'm familiar with that the customer didn't elect not to use the transit service. They had no choice but to find alternative, like call friends, families, whatever. We have an individual right here in this council chamber that had to go through great extents to finally get the Niagara Region to do something. It's because she was capable of managing the phone calls, et cetera, et cetera. But there were several people that were left behind, and they didn't elect not to use the transit service. So what do you think about that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Again, I agree that there were situations where in the very beginning, those instances did happen and did occur. I can't refute that. We acknowledge them with our contractor to remedy them since the beginning till now. We haven't had those instances in the last 4 or 5 months through the ridership and data that we've been collecting. I agree with you that shouldn't have happened, and it won't happen. We have our policies in place with that contractor to ensure that moving forward, because I do empathize with those customers as well.
Yeah, and I can appreciate that. In regards to the no driveway policy, if I'm trying to read through this, because I can read it both ways, the Niagara Region Niagara Transit doesn't agree with that, but the provider of service, that's their policy.
Through the mayor, that's correct.
This was not discussed during negotiations and during the RFP process?
Through the mayor, what was discussed during the RFP process is that Niagara Transit, if a policy existed, would be adopted by the provider. Our policy, our procedure for driveways and private laneways is just that. It's a procedure taught and put in practice through our training. We do not have a formal driveway or laneway policy that prohibits vehicles from entering driveway. It's been our practice since the amalgamation and prior to with Legacies that type of service enters the first accessible door if available. That's where we are working with the contractor to establish a joint policy that meets the needs for both us, them, and the customer at the end of the day.
And I can appreciate that you're not always the one making the decisions and stuff, and the provider has their own ideas on things. With this no driveway policy, what happens like in an apartment building? I'll use Albany Place, I don't know if you're familiar with that. Well, any apartment building, basically there's a driveway that goes into the apartment building and goes around and basically stops at the front door for the most part. Is that happening, or is they're going to have to walk out to the road? Outside the driveway and outside the parking lot.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, what we've experienced, fortunately, in the circumstance that we are with respect to the driveway policy, we haven't had an abundance of concerns put forward from customers. The ones we have had, they have been private residences. The apartment buildings have still been facilitated in the same way that you would expect, where they enter that more public driveway or laneway of that property. The instances that we have that have been recorded from customers themselves or councillors is the ones that are private residence or a residential home, not the apartment buildings. And those customers are still provided the accessible service through escorting from the door of their home to the vehicle through the vehicle policy.
Okay, so, I'm sorry, I missed that last part. So they are going into the driveways of these individual homes?
Through the chair, or through the mayor, sorry. They are not going into the driveway of personal residence, a home. Apartment buildings have been accommodated from the driveway aspect.
If I can continue, what about the safety aspect? If there's some homes, et cetera, that, you know, it's just not, the transfer isn't safe on the road. Let's say the road's quite narrow, or there's, you know, there really isn't any driveway. Like, there's certain areas of town where there is no driveway. Well, that doesn't make any sense when I'm asking the question. If there's no driveway, how you can get there. But there are certain circumstances where the road isn't conducive to a transfer, particularly if it takes time. And many times when you're transferring someone with a power wheelchair or mobility aids, it takes a little longer. And you're backing up traffic because the road just isn't big enough. Would that be a consideration for an exception?
Mr. Zara?
Through the mayor, yes, so those concerns that are brought forward to my team, one of the aspects that we've requested the contractor to perform is a site inspection. Based on the assessments of the site inspection, the comments made from the customer and from staff, they have made exceptions for certain circumstances. They do treat it on a case by case, but that would be correct.
And thank you.
Councillor Dubanow, sorry, Councillor Flagg.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you for your presentation. On slide 4, you indicate that there's 13 vehicles assigned to Fort Erie, 7 tagged units, 6 that serve Fort Erie as a broader part of the region, with 3 that are wheelchair accessible. Can you tell me the breakdown? Is that 3 of the 13 in total, and are any tagged units in Fort Erie wheelchair accessible?
Through the mayor, so the 13 vehicles are what is dispatched from Fort Erie. The 7 that are tagged, I'm going to look behind my shoulder. I believe it's 1 that is wheelchair accessible, specifically tagged for Fort Erie municipality. The other 2 wheelchair accessible vehicles are part of that 6, which get deployed into the region. Still available. This was an item that sought some clarity in our meeting. Those vehicles are still available to Fort Erie based on the proximity. Those 6, it's the 7 that stay within the municipal boundaries and do not leave.
Thanks for that clarity. I could read that a couple of different ways, so I just wanted to make sure that I was aware. Thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Zara, could you go to slide 6, please? That's where you've got a couple of graphs.
There we go.
That one there. So that does indicate that there was an increase 23 to 24, but 24 to 25 looks like significant decrease. Is there an explanation for that, or does it only include part of the first quarter?
So that data there represents the first quarter. There was a decrease in the specialized ridership specifically. The numbers I was referring to on the increases is of a whole. That ridership that you're seeing decrease in specialized has been captured through our analysis of customers that are utilizing the microtransit service, but through an accessible vehicle through the dynamic scheduling of the software that is provided. So it's an accurate reflection of those booking a specialized trip, but an inaccurate reflection of the ridership total that is using the total allotment of vehicles that are accessible within the service region proper.
So is the reduction, is that something that's, I don't know if you would know, has that continued on in Fort Erie during the second quarter in 2025? Or would you know that?
Without it standing in front of me, I would be making my best guess. I can definitely get it back to you before, or at least before the next board or within the next week for sure.
Okay,
You have that
would be
information.
fine, and then we can-
Sorry, and through the mayor, just to jump in. And you did receive the Q1 stats, and that will be an ongoing practice going forward. So you'll get Q2, Q3, Q4. You'll see them at the board, and then shortly after, you will get them from me, and I'll be sending them around to all the councils. And you will get the full Niagara spectrum like you got on the last one, just to clarify that.
So you'll be sending that to the clerk, and then the clerk can distribute that to the councilors?
That's correct, yes.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Appreciate you coming out and providing that background information, and it was a very enlightening meeting that we had with the Accessibility Advisory Committee, and I see that Ms. Brandt is here along with Ms. Bradnam, and I don't know, is Mr. Wolf with you? Is he just, is he an interested observer? Perfect. It's cooler here than outside. Thanks very much, gentlemen.
Thank you very much
having
again.
us.
Appreciate it.
Okay, that takes us then to a zoning bylaw amendment, 745 Dominion Road, and this is a public meeting. The individual, so the way this works is the council will receive information, background information from one of our staff, providing us with what the application is about and comments with respect to the application. Then we'll ask the applicant or the applicant's agent if he wishes to make any comments to council. Both of them are subject to questions by members of council. Thereafter, I'll ask the audience if there's anyone who wishes to speak in support of the application other than the applicant. And then I'll ask if there's anyone who wishes to speak in opposition or ask questions of members of council. Throughout that process, I'll be asking Mr. Patton if there is anyone in the digital waiting room that wishes to address council with respect to the application. Once we're finished, I will ask the acting deputy clerk if we've received any correspondence with respect to the matter since the report was prepared, which is report PBBS 46/2025. And at that point then, I'll likely declare the meeting closed and we'll move on to deal with the report itself. So, Mr. Morton, I see that you're at the podium and you have an assistant with you. And you're going to be providing us with some background information, I presume.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you, Mayor, council, staff, members of Miles today. Miles is our junior development planner. So take it easy.
Does Miles have a last name?
Yeah, Miles Bennett. Take it easy on Miles today. It's his first time.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, staff, and members of the public in attendance. My name is Miles Banfield, and I'm the Junior Development Planner with the Town of Fort Erie. The purpose of tonight's presentation is to provide a recommendation to Council as it relates to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment for lands municipally known as 745 Dominion Road. The application was submitted by Quartet Group, Inc., care of Matthew Trendata, on behalf of the owner of Crystal Ridge Homes, care of Jeff Davis. Statutory requirements of the Planning Act were satisfied by placing a sign on the subject lands and circulating a notice of complete application on April 17th, 2025, and a notice of public meeting on June 3rd, 2025. The proposed zoning bylaw amendment application is subject to a 90-day processing and review timeline. The timeline begins the day the applications are deemed complete and concludes the day council makes a decision on the application. Today is day 75 of the 90-day processing and review timeline. In terms of site location, as you can see here, the subject lands are located within the Town of Fort Erie settlement area inside the urban boundary. Further, the subject lands are located on the south side of Dominion Road, east of Beachview Avenue, and west of Helena Street. The subject lands are approximately 2,040 square meters in area and is currently vacant. The subject lands are northwest of Waverly Beach Park and the eastern start of Friendship Trail, which are both located at the intersection of Helena Street and Edgemere Road. The subject lands are also northeast of the Beachview Waterfront Window, located at the intersection of Edgemere Road and Beachview Drive along the Friendship Trail. The images in this slide are of the Beachview Waterfront Window and the Friendship Trail, which are both approximately 300 meters from the subject lands. The images in this slide are of Waverly Beach Park, located about half a kilometer from the subject lands. subject lands are in walking distance of the Erie Beach Variety Convenience Store, which is across the street of the Albert Street Park. Other amenities near the subject lands are the Old Fort Erie Park, a historic park located at the intersection of Dominion Road and Lakeshore Road, and Snake Hill Parkette, located along Lakeshore Road, which are both roughly 1.5 kilometers from the subject lands. The image in this slide is of Erie Beach Variety Convenience Store, located about 1 kilometer from the subject lands, and represents a commercial use nearby. The images in this slide are of Albert Street Park, Old Fort Erie Park, and Snake Hill Parkettes. The image on the left shows a closer satellite view of the subject lands, highlighted in blue. The structure on the lands in this image was demolished as of July 11th, 2023, in accordance with permit number 2023-0248. The image on the right shows the current condition of the subject lands. Following a recent site visit completed on June 19, 2025, we have images of trees on adjacent lots, none of which are located on the subject lands. This slide shows an existing culvert along the front of the lot in Dominion Road, in addition to a driveway for access. The applicant will be required to obtain new entrance permits from Niagara Region, as Dominion Road is a regional road. These images show the north and south views from the subject lands. And these images show the east and west views from the subject lands. In terms of neighborhood context, the subject lands are surrounded by single detached dwellings. There are numerous examples of infill development whereby the character of the neighborhood is reflected through the variety of ages, lot sizes, and designs of the dwellings. The images here on this slide show the diversity in age, lot size, and design. Here we have a conceptual site plan of the proposal. As you can see, the applicant proposes a total of 4 units in a 2-story semi-detached dwelling with 2 units each. The smallest lot of the semi-detached dwelling is Unit 1, with a proposed lot area of 238.3 square meters. The lot maintains sufficient space for rear yard access, and the applicant is not requiring any other relief for things such as building height, side yard, or lot coverage. Here we have a zoning map of the subject lands. The pale yellow represents the current residential 2 zoning, which does not allow for semi-detached dwellings. As such, the applicant is proposing a site-specific rezoning of the lot to residential 3 zoning, which does allow for semi-detached dwellings. This slide shows the zoning departures from residential 3 zone requirements requested from the applicant. It includes minimum lot frontage and maximum lot area. Under the compliance column on the right, in areas indicated yes, the applicant has demonstrated compliance with the zoning bylaw. Here we have the Town of Fort Erie official land use designation for the subject lands, with the subject lands shown in the blue outline. The Town of Fort Erie's official plan designates the subject lands as urban residential. The official plan supports this proposal as it respects the character and surrounding conditions of the neighborhood, represents efficient land use, diversity in housing form, type, and density, which are encouraged to achieve goals such as meeting the current and future needs of the community, and diversity in built form. Here is an overview of the studies and reports submitted in support of the application. Studies and reports are available for review and inspection at any time by contacting staff assigned carriage of the file. A public information open house was held on May 7th, 2025. All property owners within 120 meters of the subject lands were notified of the meeting. Town planning staff and the agent were in attendance. One member of the public attended the open house who made comments related to runoff caused by the development. These concerns will be addressed through the building permit. To date, staff have received no written comments on the application. Thank you. This concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much. Do any members of council have any questions? Councillor Noyes.
Thank you, Mayor Redekop. Thank you for your presentation. In regards to the semis that you're planning, is there any plan that you know of that's going to be accessible, an accessory apartment or something within those buildings?
Through you, Mayor, nothing's been confirmed at this time.
Okay, if I can,
Please.
confirmed means you've had a discussion. Yes, no?
No, it means it hasn't been
Through-
confirmed.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, it just means it hasn't been confirmed either through a discussion or email.
Okay, so it hasn't, okay.
But what I would say is that the zoning would allow for those.
And I can appreciate that there's the rules that will allow it. What is the cost point? Any idea what the cost point of these buildings are going to be?
That might be a question that you'd want to save for the developer.
Okay, that's fine.
Ben-
Is the developer here?
Through you, Chair. So that's another thing I wanted to discuss. They are not in attendance this evening. They were under the assumption that this had been scheduled for a later date.
Okay. Can you answer Councillor Noyes' question? If not, maybe you can pass it on to the developer.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, that's something we can discuss with the developer, but it hasn't been confirmed at this time.
Yeah, and my question, affordability. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyone else? So could you make reference again then to the distance between this parcel at 745 Dominion Road and the Erie Beach Variety? I think you made reference to the Albert Street Park, which is just down the street.
Yeah, it's about a kilometer
Okay.
from the subject lands.
It's a little more than a kilometer.
Can you
And
tell
it's-
he's a runner?
Well, I don't know, that's, and for future reference, it's Helena Street, not Helena. So, yeah. Okay, great, thank you very
They
much.
let you off with
gentlemen.
that one.
Good job, that's your first appearance, you're given a couple of mulligans, you're all set. Okay, so the developer's not here, so then I'm gonna go right to, if anybody wishes to speak. Pardon? Not yet. We have to ask if there's anyone who wishes to speak in support. And so then so you guys are done for now?
You can sit.
Yeah. Excellent job, yes. So is there anyone here who wishes to speak in support of the application? If not, then, Mr. Patton, is there anyone in the digital waiting room?
Worship, there's nobody in the digital waiting room.
No one at all?
Nobody at all.
Okay. So then I'm going to ask if there's anyone who wishes to speak in opposition to the application or has any questions that they would like to ask of council with respect to the matter. So I'm going to then go to the clerk. Deputy Clerk, have we received anything since the preparation of the report?
No additional comments were received, Mayor Redekop.
Then I'm going to declare this public meeting closed, and Councillor Christensen, you have the resolution for us to deal with report PBBS 46.
Yes, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Lewis, that Council approves the amendment to the town zoning bylaw 129-90 as detailed in report PBBS 46-2025 for land known as 745 Dominion Road, and further that Council directs staff to submit the necessary zoning bylaw amendment.
Are there any questions or comments with respect to the report? I just had, Mr. Walker, you might be able to answer this. With respect to the reference to the sidewalk realignment, is that something that can be dealt with under the site plan process, or is there a need for there to be specific direction through this report that the sidewalk will be aligned with the existing sidewalk?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll clarify a few things. First, we likely would not see.
Okay.
We would, however, so at that time, we could.
So when you say minor, how much of a jog would there be in the sidewalk?
Plan up, but it is a very minor jog. I think the lived experience, you'd likely not even notice it when you're walking down the sidewalk.
The report from other staff of the town of Fort Erie says that they would require that to be aligned.
Yeah, Infrastructure Services is looking for that to be aligned. There is some ongoing discussions because, like I say, the applicant will require space for those service connections, which generally we see right on the property line. The unique part with this situation is that that sidewalk is effectively built on the property line, which is causing this small discrepancy.
So, Ms. Dilwaria, any comments? Sorry, I'm just going to the next person up the list. Any comments with respect to this? I'm concerned that, it should be, for the sake of people using the sidewalk, it should be aligned, in my view. I appreciate the concern with respect to the servicing of the property, but any comments?
Your Worship, I concur with what Mr. Morton had said. The sidewalk is currently within the owner's property, and once that realignment it would be a minor jog, but this is to accommodate the servicing, the laterals that would go in, so people would not even notice that, and we can deal with that at the time of consent.
So what does minor mean? 6 inches? 4 inches?
I'd have to refer to the servicing plan to give you an exact figure.
And is a severance application the appropriate time for this type of requirement if it's going to be imposed?
Yeah, thank you. Through you, generally, yes. Through the consent process is when you attach conditions. It can be done through the rezoning process by way of a holding provision. And there are limited opportunities where you can attach conditions to a rezoning. It's not a standard practice. And with the understanding that we know that they'll have to create the lots by way of consent, those lots effectively wouldn't be created until such time as all the conditions have been satisfied. So I think there's a little bit more strength to adding that as a condition through the consent process.
Except we don't control that. That's controlled by the Committee of Adjustment.
Committee of Adjustment controls that, that's correct.
So
we would have appeal rights should committee remove conditions that we are not satisfied with.
Well, I wouldn't want to get into that. Can we, before this comes, or when this comes back to us in a bylaw format, can we get a memo just indicating what the magnitude of this is and, whether it's something that we should address at the bylaw stage for this?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions, anyone? If not, I'm going to call a question on the resolution. All those in favor of the report's recommendations? That is unanimous. That is carried. Thank you very much, Mr. Morton. That then takes us to the consent agenda, and we can't deal with every item in the consent agenda until we get a couple of names with respect to the appointment to the SPCA. Councillor Noyes, are you still agreeable to put your name forward?
Looking forward to it.
Perfect. That's what we like, optimism and energy. And I see, Madam Deputy Clerk, we need a backup on that. Anyone who wishes to offer up to be a backup? Councillor Christensen, perfect.
Notice I was like, not it.
Not quite as enthusiastic, but still, you're smiling. That's always good. Yeah, and for that, we're all grateful, yes. Okay, Councillor Christensen, or Councillor McDermott, you have the resolution for the consent agenda.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Flagg, that council approves the consent agenda as recommended.
We can. Yeah, what would you like to take out?
I'd actually like to remove, Your Worship, if possible, 11.3.2, the Traffic Coordinating Committee minutes.
Okay, so we'll deal with those separately. So are there any questions or comments with respect to the remaining items? Councillor Noyes.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Mayor Redekop. In regards to 11.3.1, the Museum of Cultural Heritage Advisory Committee, I see that to second that, that that the Cultural Advisory Committee recommends the property owner be required to board up all doors and windows and install fencing around the remaining designated buildings to enhance security. I think the last meeting we discussed this, and I think we did not agree to that.
Exactly.
And I'm just wondering, but if we're receiving and approved recommendations, I don't want to be sending them a double message.
So I don't think that portion of the resolution should be included here for us to deal with because we've already dealt with it. So, Madam Deputy Clerk, this was a mine left by the clerk for you to deal with. So the minutes, if you look at the minutes of the, maybe the last committee meeting perhaps, or maybe it was the regular council meeting. So there was a resolution passed by council that we did not agree with. Do you have that available, either of you?
Apologies, Mayor Redekop. Which council meeting did you say?
I thought it was regular, but it might have been the last council and committee meeting. Do you have it by any chance, Councillor Noyes?
No, I don't. But I do recall it. I'm just one, anyway, I'll let you handle it.
No, we dealt with this. Here it is here. It was in the council committee meetings. It's 8.1. It was part of our consent agenda, and council does not support the motion passed by the Museum and Cultural Heritage Advisory Committee requesting that the property owner board up the windows and doors of the original building for the reasons outlined in PBBS 41-2025. So we've dealt with. So, okay, so that paragraph would need to be amended, unless there's something. Sure, please do.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. And if I may, this issue has been, and I'm agree like with the recommendation of council. I agree with that, but it's been a bit of a stickling point with the committee, just with the condition of the building. I think. Just for some background for council, I think we're going to have the chief building official make a presentation to discuss the reasons why it's not always appropriate to board up the windows, because it can cause damage to the building, it can cause stagnant air, mold, other potential risks. The one thing, though, if council is agreeable, I do think with some of the vandalism that's happened to the building, it might be appropriate to put a fence up. But I'll leave that for council to discuss.
So the third paragraph of that resolution was that the property owner be requested to install a fence around the original school building following completion of the demolition.
Okay, that's fine then.
So did they want a fence put up before demolition? Okay, so, yeah, Ms. Dilwari, can you provide us with any further background on this?
Your Worship, you are correct. The last minutes we had approved that the windows should not be boarded because of the concerns that Keegan, the chief building official, had brought up. We have just approved the heritage permit, but I would ensure that in those heritage permit, there is a condition that their fencing would be installed. So there is no safety concerns and all the issues are taken care of.
So the resolution that we passed in June the 9th talks about the fence going up after completion of the demolition. When the permit is issued, it has to be issued before the demolition, and that's when staff would be inclined to request the fence. So then, just looking at what's before us tonight, that would cover that install fencing, that owner be required to install fencing around the remaining designated building to enhance security. So I would suggest that, Councillor McDermott, you're the mover, and Councillor, who seconded that? Councillor Flagg? You're, yeah. So are you agreeable to removing in the second paragraph with respect to 576 Ridge Road North, remove the words starting at the end of the second line of the second that to board up all of the doors and windows, and remove that? So that what it says is the Museum and Cultural Heritage Advisory Committee recommends that the property owner be required to install fencing, around the remaining designated building to enhance security. You agreeable with that, Councillor McDermott? Councillor Flagg, are you agreeable to that?
Yes.
So that's a friendly amendment to your motions. Okay, anything further on this particular item? Okay. So then we're going to vote, let's just vote on 11.3.1 right now and get it out of the way. All those in favor of the resolution, slightly amended, 11.3.1? Okay. Councillor Noyes, did you have any questions on any of the other items?
No.
And anyone else? I did want to comment on the Crystal Beach Business Improvement Area Board of Management. There was a reference to some work being done at the waterfront park sign. And I want to commend Councillor Lewis, who showed up for the work party, and he was the only person who showed up. So he was the work party. and did a fine job from the photos that he sent to me. Now, I'm assuming that those were accurate photos and that, in fact, you were the only one that showed up.
I'll leave it as that.
Okay. Councillor Christensen?
I can confirm that the work was done.
Okay. So you, as Councillor Lewis was working away, you were cheering him on.
Wait until you get my bill.
No, I went to check afterwards.
Okay. Okay. So we're going to deal with all the other items in the consent agenda, with the exception of 11.3.2, which we're going to deal with separately. Okay, everybody clear? All those in favor? None opposed, that is carried. Okay, so let's deal with 11.3.2. Councillor Dubanow.
Yes, Your Worship, and thank you. I just, with respect to some of the recommendations here in, I believe it's Appendix 2, my apologies, with regard to some of the rural speed limits, rural speed limit changes. I'm just wondering if perhaps we can get some staff comment on this, because we did a rural speed limit study, I want to say, was it back in 2023, maybe 2022, with respect to our rural speed limits, and there were actually some recommendations on increasing speed limits to ensure consistency rather than reducing. And I'm just concerned here about what's motivating these, because I'm always of the opinion that an unenforced speed limit that doesn't make sense is not worth, it's just a sign that everyone's going to ignore. So I'm just wondering if maybe staff can give us some background on how this fits into the rural speed limit study and how this came about.
Mr. Frost? Sorry, Director Frost.
Through Your Worship. The rural speed limit study mostly looked at the geometry and the context of the roadways to advise from that type of perspective what the speed could be for that road with all design elements in consideration. With this proposal, what we're doing is we're looking at things like the condition of the roadway, especially when they're the granular roads, the maintenance schedules for the roads, and what we're really seeing is because of the speed, it's bumping the classification of these roads up higher and putting priority over these roadways over other roadways for our regular maintenance, our patrols, our winter clearing, our rehabilitation strategies, when in reality some of these are very low volume roads and there are other high volume, higher speed roads that are more interconnected to our other higher volume arterial and collector roads as well. So it's really about balancing priority and getting them in the right place for all of our maintenance activities.
Councillor Dubanow.
I can appreciate where the director's coming from, but again, a speed limit that's set artificially low for maintenance purposes relative to design is not a speed limit that makes sense. It's just going to be ignored. So I mean, reducing a speed limit on Gilmore Road from 70 to 50, that's a rural road. I mean, I drive that when I gotta go to the back roads out to the west end of the region. I don't understand what, I mean, yeah, it might change the classification for maintenance purposes, but this isn't going to be enforceable, and it's not going to be anything that we can stand behind if we're reducing the speed limits with no study to back it. It just doesn't make sense to me, and I raise this because I'm becoming very frustrated to see, you know, speed limits are supposed to be based on design of the road, 85th percentile of traffic, and numerous factors that determine what a speed limit should be. And I'm getting very frustrated as someone who sits here and sees proposals come up where someone just wants to slap up a sign but not redesign the road or make changes to actually cause the speed to change. And I mean, if council wants to support this, that's fine. I'm not supportive of this, just on the simple matter, we're reducing speed limits on rural roads that are never going to get NRP enforcement, that you're never going to see someone out there with a speed gun looking to make sure someone's going 50 rather than 70. I mean, we're going to be, I can understand 50, we don't have to put signs up, but some of the other ones, there have to be sign changeouts. I'm becoming frustrated with this. It seems like it's almost, you know, anytime there's an issue, reduce the speed limit, but we're not redesigning the roads or doing anything to actually physically slow the cars down. And very frustrated with this. So that's my position. I'm not supportive of this. I think we need to have more studies in engineering. We did that speed limit study. It actually made recommendations. It actually recommended that we should increase the speed limit on numerous roads due to the design and the factors involved, and we're reducing speed limits. It just doesn't make sense to me. So I'll let council decide what they're going to do. I won't be supporting this portion of the minutes.
So, Councillor Dubanow, I had marked this down as well, and Acting Director Frost, I presume that there are some safety aspects to this, but there is a concern about enforcement, and I'm just wondering if there isn't further information that could be provided to council to rationalize from staff's perspective and the traffic coordinating committee's perspective why these would be appropriate. And it wouldn't hurt if we had an update as to the change in the speed limits from the study that had been previously prepared. So that's all information I think that you could provide if this were deferred for, there's no urgency on this, is there?
Through your worship. No, there's no immediate urgency at this point. We wanted to bring it forth as we will be bringing some changes to our traffic bylaws in coming meetings. So we wanted to get this in front of council now, so when we bring the bylaw in the next meeting that we would have the information at that point in time. So we are able to bring back some information. We didn't have any significant speeding concerns on some of these sections of roads at the traffic coordinating committee when we talked about the roads, what the suitability of these reductions would be, what NRP who were at the table were saying from their understanding, and we kind of took a holistic view, but we can certainly bring back more information at the next meeting to support these recommendations.
So I think we should do that before we get to a bylaw stage. So Councillor Dubanow, would you like to put this over? Well, I'll go to Councillor Noyes on this particular point. Yeah, Councillor Noyes.
Thank you, Mayor Redekop. I sit on the committee, and we did have a lot of discussion, and I can see it both ways. One of the things that was not discussed, that many of these roads are gravel roads. And because they're gravel roads, the faster you go, the more dust. And I've had many concerns, I think you've been familiar with some of them, with the dust. So one of the ideas of slowing down traffic would also hopefully decrease the dust that the residents who live along that road are. Another, one of the reasons that was brought up beside what the director said was about consistency, is that the speed limits on roads change. Like, I think Gilmore Road may be a good example where Gilmore Road may not, there's some of the roads where it's like 60, and then it's 70, then it's 60, then it's 70, so that we thought that rather than increasing it to 70 across, that we would decrease it to 60. I'm thinking Fox Road is one of the roads where it goes from 60 to 70 and back to 60. That was also one of the reasons that we thought that some of these roads should be consistent rather than raising it to decreasing it. I just wanted to add that.
Councillor Flagg.
Thank you, Your Worship. A couple of questions on this as well. Under Appendix 2, the traffic count data summary, is it just coincidence that we just have Bs and Cs in this, or do we just start with Bs and Cs on the traffic data and go to Z as they come up?
Acting Director.
Bear with me while I pull up that appendix, if you may.
It's Appendix 2, right at the very end. On pages 21 and 22.
You have that, Mr. Frost?
I do, and if I may, you were asking why we have Bs and Cs in which section of the appendix?
It just looks like road section are, we start with Barron on the bottom, we go through Collect, Concession, and that's it. Are these the only streets that we've had these upon, or maybe we only have a certain portion of this report that's been provided?
Through your worship, you have the full section of the appendix that was provided. It's just coincidence that they would be the Bs and Cs for the roadways. We did do different before and after studies, and this just happens to be the subset that we looked at.
That's reasonable. It's just surprising that that's how it worked out. And my other question, if I may continue, Your Worship.
Yes.
And I go back here. On page 8, you indicate that because of some fire equipment problems, that you are ordering new base templates. Can you explain to me why base templates are required if the bollards are the same, and if those base templates will be able to be reused in some other traffic calming area around town?
Acting Director.
Through your worship, when we install the bollards and the signage and we put the base in, it's a one-time use for that base, and we simply have to put in a new base every time we want to reinstall these devices. The cost is relatively nominal, but it is something that is a throwaway component to these devices.
Asked and answered. Thank you.
Councillor Noyes again.
I just wanted to add one other thing that I forgot to mention, is that sometimes on the speed limits, not necessarily on the roller roads, that we lowered it because there are certain criteria for any of the traffic calming devices that we can use. If the speed is a certain speed, not very good English, you can't do A, B, and C. So if you lower it by 10 kilometers, you can use a lot of some of the traffic calming devices that are available to us. So that's another reason that you'll see some of the decrease in the speeds.
Anyone else on this before I go back to Councillor Dubanow? You want to put this, want to move that we defer this to the July?
Yeah, could we bring this back at a committee meeting?
Yeah, July the 7th. Is that a couple of weeks give you enough time? Acting
Yes.
Director? Okay, July 7th?
Yep, July 7th works for me, Your Worship.
Okay, so only to timing. If there are no questions, all those in favor of deferring this to July the 7th? That is carried. That then takes us to reports, of which there are none. We have some new business matters. Councillor Noyes, you had a resolution with respect to the selection of chair and vice chairs for business subdivision services. And I know we had some discussion about whether this was going to be further deferred or not. Okay. Okay, so it needs to get on the floor. Councillor Noyes.
Okay, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Lewis. Whereas Section 18.8 of the Council's Rules of Procedure bylaw states that prior to April 1st, in the second year of the term, Council meets in open session and selects the chair and the vice chair for each business subdivision for the second 16-month period of term. Now therefore be resolved. Do I need to read all that?
No.
If we're going to defer it?
Yeah, if there's going to be a motion to defer.
If I may, Your Worship.
Yeah.
It's just, When, perhaps Ms. Deloria can answer this, just when are we targeting to have the official plan recommendation report brought to council? Are we looking at August for that?
So Ms. Dewari, I think it was July.
Yes, Your Worship, you're correct. Initially, it was July, but there may be some delay, so it would be early part of August.
So I'm going to suggest, this has dragged on long enough, we're getting close to the end. And if there are any meetings after that, you can certainly attend, but I'm thinking this should be deferred to the end of July, which is
I'm
July.
good with that.
Is it July the 23rd? July 21st.
I'm good with that, Your Worship.
Okay, so you're moving that this be deferred to July the 21st?
Yep.
So there's a motion to defer. It's only as to timing. If there are no questions, all those in favor of the resolution to defer? Get that?
That last one. Seconder.
Okay, so no, it's a month. And it is July 21st. Okay, so that's carried. Did you get that? The motion to defer.
Mayor, I apologize. I didn't get the seconder on the motion to defer.
Oh yeah, there wasn't one. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Christensen. Okay, so it was Councillor Christensen. We'll vote it once more. All those in favor? Okay, that's carried. Okay, so the next item is to move into closed session. Councillor Dubanow, you have that? No, before we go there, are there any other items of new business or inquiries? Okay, if none, Councillor Dubanow.
Yes, Your Worship, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Flagg, that council does now go into closed session at 7:19 PM to consider the following. Item 14.1, closed session minutes for June 9th, 2025. Item 14.2, Accessibility Advisory Committee appointment pursuant to Section 239(2)B of the Municipal Act 2001. Personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. Item 14.3, Affordable Housing Advisory Committee, Niagara Region Representative appointment pursuant to Section 239(2)B of the Municipal Act 2001. Personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. Item 14.4, Ridgeway Business Improvement Area Board of Management appointment pursuant to Section 239(2)B of the Municipal Act 2001. Personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. And item 14.5, Community Healthcare Services Committee Councillor Representative appointment pursuant to Section 239(2)B of the Municipal Act 2001. Personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees.
All those in favor? None opposed, that is carried, so we'll go into closed session. So we're back in the council chambers. Councillor Lewis, you have the resolution for us to rise and reconvene from closed session.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McDermott. The council does now rise and reconvene from closed session at 7:30 p.m. with report 14.1. The council approves the closed session minutes of June the 9th, 2025. And 14.2, that council appoints Deyanira MacDonald to the Accessibility Advisory Committee for the term ending November the 14th, 2026, or until her successor is appointed, and apologies if that was mispronounced. 14.3, that council appoints Brendan Nicholson, Niagara Regional Representative, to the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee for the term ending November the 14th, 2026, or until her successor is appointed. And 14.4, that council appoints Frank Peary to the Ridgeway Business Improvement Area Board of Management for the term ending November the 14th, 2026, or until his successor is appointed. And 14.5, that council appoints Councillor Dubanow to the Community Health Services Committee for the term ending, Health Services Committee, and Councillor Noyes as the alternative for the term ending November the 14th, 2026, or until her or his successor is appointed.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor? None opposed, that is carried. That takes us to motions, of which there are none. That then takes us to notices of motion, and Councillor Lewis, you have several.
Thank you.
So please proceed with the first one.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McDermott that council dispenses with the notice requirements to consider the motions regarding Niagara South Hospital funding and Fort Erie Urgent Care summer hours of operation.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor of waiving the rules? That is carried. Councillor Lewis, please proceed with the first item.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McDermott that the town of Fort Erie temporarily withhold the previously committed funding to the Niagara South Hospital and discuss options for reallocating those funds to other healthcare initiatives, and that the town of Fort Erie engage in discussions to determine where these funds should or could be directed based on identified community health needs, which may or may not include the Niagara South Hospital.
So just for clarification, so this is a temporary withholding as opposed to a cancellation?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yep.
fair enough.
And
yes, please proceed.
And if I can just speak to the motion. I want to start by saying I, because I don't want to speak for all of council, certainly understand and recognize that it's incumbent upon all participating municipalities to financially support the construction of a new hospital, the new Niagara South Hospital, and to assist the province in achieving the goal of constructing a new hospital for Niagara South. As I said before in council chambers and a few years back in council chambers, Fort Erie, for the right reason and for the right time, made that commitment. However, as many know, the reality in Fort Erie, the reality is that the town went into that agreement with the understanding that we would maintain our urgent care services at the Douglas Memorial site. Port Colborne was also part of that consideration too for their urgent care center. For me, it's questionable if Niagara Health ever intended to move forward with that plan, or if it was simply a way to get Fort Erie on board and to use us as a bargaining chip. If so, that probably wasn't a bad strategy for Niagara Health at the time, because if history repeats itself, one thing is clear: the past has always been 1, get angry, 2, yell, and then 3, roll over and take it. We have many people who have joined our community from areas and other areas of the province, areas where levels of service are more equally distributed amongst citizens, and councils with backbones that have the ability to make sure that we're not walked over by those who are appointed to positions of authority, who have no accountability to the community, and they have seen the impact. This motion, as you mentioned, Your Worship, is a brief pause to recognize the change that has been made without us, and quite frankly, in my opinion, against us. It allows us to chart a path forward with or without Niagara Health.
Anyone else wish to speak to the matter? Councillor Dubanow.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship, and I'm going to try to be less animated than I have in the past when this issue has come up. Everyone at home who's watching this meeting or following it will know that we do have that letter from Niagara Health included as part of our agenda this evening. I'm not, would be remiss to not mention that this did come in on a Friday afternoon. Surprise, surprise. So when you look at the funding formula that they talk about, I was particularly, I don't want to use the word offended, but I was certainly taken aback with their discussion about per capita funding for the municipality and how they had the fortitude to actually put a number that they thought we owed them. With no mention to it not just being about per capita, but also to service delivery in the communities that they serve. And, we look back at what this has gone on for a number of years. There's reference to Dr. Smith's plan. I'm trying to stay calm here.
Well, I'm going to keep you on point too, because we're talking about the $3 million previous commitment. We're not talking about the future requests that they may advance.
Exactly, and that's fair, Your Worship, and I appreciate that. So, when we're talking about funding for this, I as a personal counselor, and I'm speaking for myself, if I felt that we had a partner, if I felt that we had someone who was willing to work with us and listen to this community and the needs of this community, I don't think there would be any issue of putting this money aside for the new hospital if we felt that we were listened to. And I don't take pleasure in this. I don't see it as something that, is to be thrown around or laughed about. This is not where I'd want to go. But I feel, looking at some of the recent communication, some of the recent comments, I don't feel as an individual counselor sitting here that I have any other option. We're put here as, people ask me, what's a municipal councillor? What do we do? And I kind of summarize it as this, is we're the individuals who the community trusts us to make decisions on their behalf for the tax levy that they pay to the municipality. And as one of those individuals who has been trusted to effectively spend the dollars that residents pay to this municipality, how can I justify continuing to have this funding amount in what would have been services that Niagara Health had talked about providing this to this community when there has been a continual moving of the goalposts? And as an individual counselor here who the community has trusted, I do not feel that it would be in the best interests of my community and the individuals who put me here to continue to offer this up without having a discussion and finding out where we stand. So, and again, I'm trying to tone this down a little because I become very frustrated and very angry, especially with some of the personal experiences that I've had, and then I see some of the comments and other things from Niagara Health, so I'm trying to keep it on topic. So I'm going to be supporting this. I think it's important. The power of the purse, if you will, is one of the few powers that we have as municipal councillors on issues such as this. It may be a drop in the bucket. Certainly it was enough for them to notice because they sent that letter out. And I hope that this signals to Niagara Health that we're serious. We're advocates for our community. We're acting on the best interests of our community. We're not unelected bureaucrats. We represent the community. They marked an X or a circle or a check mark on a box next to us because they trust us to make these decisions on their behalf. We are not bureaucrats. We are not appointees who are unaccountable, and that's why I feel that it's necessary to support something like this. So thank you very much, Councillor Lewis, for bringing it forward. I hope that this, instead of results in an escalation of the rhetoric that's been going back and forth, I hope this signals that we're serious about the needs of this community and we're going to stand up for this community. And we'll see where this goes. Thank you very much.
Councillor Noyes.
Thank you, Mayor Redekop. And I know this is on the 3 million, but the 3 million is part of the 10 million, if I'm reading it correctly. So I am going to address the same thing that Councillor Dubanow did, that on one hand, they're saying, please don't take our 3 million, and by the way, we're expecting another 7 million while they're doing what they are doing to our town. Talk about chutzpah. Anyway, I'm wondering, like, they're doing it on a per capita basis, so that's how they figure out which municipality owes whatever, so much. I'm wondering if there's any other options that they decide, that they thought that might be, as opposed to a per person ratio. I know that basically they're going to ask the town for the money, and then we're going to decide how to put it in our budget. It's basically going to go on the tax bill at some point. But we have to remember that Fort Erie has the highest level of senior citizens who are going to need this service. And I know when we talk about people who move on to rural roads and stuff, well, you moved there, you knew it was a gravel road, and some people on council know the situation.
Councillor Noyes, I'm going to wheel you back, as I did with Councillor Dubanow. This is a request that hasn't yet been made. They're forecasting it. We're talking about the commitment that was made in 2013.
Okay. That's fine, and I won't say anything more on it. Thank you.
You'll get a chance when, if and when they actually come forward. Councillor Christensen and then Councillor McDermott.
Thank you, Your Worship. I want to speak to the letter of Niagara Health. I'm not referring to a future request. I am referring to their justification for encouraging us to not delay or reconsider allocation. In the letter, the last line, we are respectfully asking for council to consider the integrity of the entire system and to avoid decisions with outsized negative consequences for Niagara. First, I challenge the use of the word respectfully, because I do not believe that Fort Erie or this council have been dealt with respectfully for the past 25 years, and speaking personally, the current council. So I challenge that. To consider the integrity of the entire system. We are considering the integrity of the entire system. As I understand it, both from their website and from perusing medical prospectuses for medical universities, so schools with medical, universities with medical schools, urgent care is a legitimate component of hospital and broader healthcare services that, in fact, as I think Councillor Lewis has noted, prevents inappropriate use of emergency and acute care. So I am very concerned with that. We want to ensure, as their previous sentence talks about, access to acute and emergency services. And the way to do that is by maintaining urgent care, which looks after urgent care or urgent conditions, illnesses and injuries that require fairly immediate, so within 24-hour treatment, which frequently is not within the purview or the capacity of the primary care system, even if it were perfect, and we know it's not. So I would challenge them on that one. I think we are looking to the integrity of the system. I'm not saying there's enough money or that it's well organized, but by taking away something that is so critical to the health and well-being of the system, I think it's a mistake. And then to avoid decisions with outsized negative consequences for Niagara. I generally, I'm a policy person, everybody knows that. I tend to look at the big picture, the big population, but the hard reality is I don't want any more negative consequences for my town, which is the town of Fort Erie. So That's what I'm concerned about right now. So I will support Councillor Lewis's motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Christensen. Councillor McDermott.
Yes, thank you, Worship. Everybody's pretty much said everything up to this point. I'm a little disturbed at these well-timed pontification of the Niagara Health System. I think they got a lot of nerve sending this letter out to us just on Friday, but it's typical of what we're used to here. I wonder about this $10.5 million because of the fact that the mayor stated early tonight that the region has paid $44,000 or $44 million, or is putting that in. And that comes from taxpayers' money from across Niagara. So number one, by asking us for another 10.5, it's kind of double dipping.
So, Councillor McDermott, I want to draw you back to the motion, which is about the $3 million. We haven't gotten to their request
Okay, that's
yet.
fine. So, I don't consider the $3 million a bargaining chip for anything. Says that it would be irresponsible and unfair to residents. Well, what's unfair to residents is the fact that they're pulling our urgent care system. That's what they're trying to do. So I don't take any shame in the fact that we're arguing this point tonight. It's not a bargaining chip at all. It's a call for them to take action when council and our mayor are looking for assistance to get the ministry to cop up some money. Some genuine help, rather than the idle rhetoric that they have around. I mean, I don't get it. It's like, she's also clairvoyant in the fact that this narrative and lack of support may also jeopardize future provincial investments in Project Niagara. So I'm not so certain that Ms. Guerrero works for the province of Ontario in the sense that she has any hold over provincial investments in projects in Niagara. However, it's a threat in this letter. So, I can't say too much other than the fact, Your Worship, it's not a bargaining chip. It's, we're putting it on hold until we see what they have to offer, whether they're willing to listen to what you will say tomorrow. And I'm disappointed in this letter. It's just more of the same, just like after your press conference. And, I can't hold much respect to people who use social media but don't want to take comments. So I just kind of think this is just totally ridiculous. And the way they've handled themselves over this period of time is just as ridiculous as it can be. Thank you.
Take it you're supporting the motion?
I'd like to call for a recorded vote.
Councillor Lewis.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I wasn't going to speak to the letter, and I'm not going to speak to the financial ask that's being suggested in it. But I want to take a different approach, and that is I actually want to thank Niagara Health for the letter because it recognizes Fort Erie's longstanding commitment to healthcare in the Niagara region and Fort Erie. And I know as a member of council, I appreciate their acknowledgement for the early leadership that Fort Erie took in its commitment to the Niagara South Hospital project. But I do want to say I'm respectfully disagree with the implication that questioning or reassessing our municipalities' financial participation constitutes irresponsibility or jeopardizes the project. Quite frankly, on the contrary, we're fulfilling our responsibility to the people we represent by asking critical questions, evaluating whether regional decision is delivering equitable access and fair treatment to all community members, and in particular Fort Erie. Much has changed since 2013. Niagara Health continues with a plan that does not recognize the growth in Niagara South. And I find it interesting, and I can't remember which colleague pointed this out to me earlier, but the letter references Censa data for an increase in funding, but yet the same approach is not taken by Niagara Health with their own plans for offering health care to the residents of Niagara. So if it is to be true that the funding formula needs to be based on the census data, then their whole system in terms of how they're operating healthcare in Niagara is fundamentally flawed. And this is not something that is new here. Some of the people in the audience with the groups they represent have made that same statement. But residents in our area continue to feel the impact of reduced local healthcare services, the lack of urgent care access, including reduced hours, and it has created public concern. It's my opinion it is not unreasonable for council to revisit financial commitments made over a decade ago in light of today's circumstances, especially when our community perceives diminishing return on the investment. And I think that's what our community has been talking about. It is, however, completely unacceptable for unelected representatives to question our motives. And I want to be clear, I fully recognize the cost sharing and the need for community support in hospital infrastructure. However, support must go hand in hand with trust, accountability, and demonstrable benefits to each municipality that is contributing to the Niagara healthcare system. Council is not seeking to derail a hospital project. That is probably the most ludicrous thing I have ever heard, and I can't believe that that's how they see this. But to ensure that Fort Erie residents are not left behind in a system that we're funding. That is the issue. And I remain, and I know council and the mayor are open to encouraged and continued dialogue with Niagara Health and regional partners, but that dialogue must include meaningful engagement around access, equity, sustainability, not just funding. And we owe that to our constituents, and quite frankly, Niagara Health owes that to the community. And lastly, I don't know if this letter from Niagara Health was sent to every municipality, but I think we should send it to every municipality. Because if they're coming after us for an additional funding, you bet they're coming after each and every single other one that makes up the region. So those are my comments. I think I count where we need to go on this, and quite appreciate the support from council when we get there.
All right, Councillor McDermott, you requested a recorded vote. Madam Deputy Clerk.
Councillor Christensen,
In favor.
Councillor Dubanow,
Yes.
Councillor Flagg,
Yes.
Councillor Lewis,
Yes.
Councillor McDermott, Councillor Noyes,
Yes.
Mayor Redekop.
On the basis of the wording temporarily withhold, yes.
That's carried.
See, we don't clap here. And obviously you knew that. Councillor Lewis, you have another resolution.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. While we're at it, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McDermott that the town of Fort Erie requests the Minister of Health to direct Niagara Health to reinstate the full hours of operation for the Fort Erie Urgent Care Center during July and August of 2025.
Sorry.
If I can speak briefly to
Yep.
that motion. Just some things to consider when, I think it's quite self-explanatory, but some of the things that I thought of after bringing this notice of motion forward. Fort Erie experiences the significant highest population increase during the summer months due to tourism season, residents and cross-border visitors, particularly in the areas of Crystal Beach and Ridgeway, and I'm going to include Shirkston in that, even though it's Port Colborne. This surge places demand on emergency and urgent care services. It reduces hours and it strains the system and can delay critical access to care. Warmer months correlate with more outdoors activities, recreational injuries, heat-related illness, and traffic incidents. Seniors and children, our two most vulnerable populations, are especially impacted during reduced access during these peak periods. Reduced UCC hours push patients towards overstretched and emergency departments in Welland, Port Colborne, and beyond. Increasing ambulance offload delays time travels from Fort Erie residents, which are also not convenient or helpful. Fort Erie residents deserve equal access to healthcare services, especially when contributing to regional funding through property taxes and other local share commitments. The community has repeatedly voiced its concern and frustration over reduced hours, creating a growing, what I'm going to call, trust deficit between our residents and the healthcare system locally. The Ontario government has prioritized access to healthcare to reduce hallway medicine and community-based care as goals, and reinstating the full hours during peak summer months align with these priorities and demonstrates responsive, data-driven health planning. And those are my only comments on that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Lewis. Anyone else? Councillor Noyes?
I'm just wanting a clarification because it refers to full hours. Are we talking 24/7? Are we talking about just to reinstate
The current hours?
the current hours?
My apologies, it should be the current hours. I think the return to the 24/7 is part of that broader conversation we need to have between now and, we'll get to that in the next notice of motion.
So Councillor Lewis, I wonder if after the word full in the second line of that, it should say full current hours. Yeah, okay, so Madam Clerk, you want to insert that, and you're okay with that? Okay. Okay, so that's the resolution on the floor. All those in favor? That is carried. Councillor Lewis, third item. Is this the one that you're...
September 22nd. So this would be a notice of motion, and I'll speak to it after. Notice of motion that the Town of Fort Erie formally requests the resignation of the CEO and Board of Directors of Niagara Health, and further requests that the Province of Ontario appoint a supervisor to oversee Niagara Health, and that would be returnable to the council meeting of September the 22nd.
Are there any other notices? Sorry, are there any other notices of motion? Councillor Dubanow.
Yes, Your Worship, I'd like to give notice regarding removing a holding provision from one block on a property scheduled for development on Walden Boulevard. That will be returnable at our July council meeting. Was that the 22nd? 21st? So that'll be returnable on the 21st, and I'll get the details to the clerk for the motion.
Any others? If not, then that takes us to consideration of bylaws. Does anyone wish any of these bylaws removed from the package? If not, then Councillor Flagg, you have first and second reading of the bylaw.
I do, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor McDermott, that the bylaw package containing 56/2025 to amend zoning bylaw 12990 as amended, I'm assuming, as amended 4924 Shirkston Road. 57/2025 to amend bylaw 52-09, change delegated authority of the Director of Planning, Building, and Bylaw Services. 58/2025 to authorize the entry into an amendment agreement between DCS Niagara Developments, Inc. for 271 Ridgeway Road, expand permitted uses. 59/2025 to appoint Daryl Cease as a fire prevention inspector for the corporation of the town of Fort Erie. 60/2025, to authorize amending the memorandum of understanding between Hospice Niagara and the corporation of the town of Fort Erie. Increase grant funding. 61/2025, to authorize applications for the cancellation, reduction, or refund of taxes levied for the years 2023, 2024, and 2025. 62/2025, to amend the user fees and charges bylaw regional official plan amendment fees. And 63/2025, to amend zoning bylaw 129-90 as amended, 99 Joseph Street, are given first and second reading.
All those in favor? That is carried. That bylaw package is on the floor for any questions or comments. Councillor Noyes.
Thank you, Mayor Redekop. Number 18.7, to amend the user fees and charges bylaw, regional official plan amendment fees. I just want to bring this up. I did talk to Councillor Insinia earlier when I asked some of the questions. I do realize that the town's workload is going to increase. And so the current fees that we're going to have to do more work. But I also realize that there's an overlap of what the region did and what we did, and there were some synergies to be found. I do understand, too, from our discussion, I guess 2 weeks ago, that this increase, or adopting the regional fees on top of our fees, is temporary in nature. And so I'm going to hold to that and hope that we do see reduction. I just don't think it's fair. I don't agree with the region's just moving 14 people around. They don't have to do A, B, and C, but they'll do something else anyway. But the taxpayers are on the hook. So the taxpayers aren't going to get relief from the region in regards to the dollars saved by this. And I think the whole purpose of the legislative change was to, number, expedite things, but also to save some money for the development and therefore the cost of the housing. So those are my comments.
So Councillor Noyes, once the town's official plan is approved by the province, the region's official plan is no longer applicable, so there would be no fees to amend their official plan. It would only be the municipalities. And at that point, there will be a new schedule brought forward by staff, and they've undertaken to do that. Anything further, Councillor Noyes? Anyone else? Then Councillor Christensen, third and final reading, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Lewis, that bylaws 56-2025 to 63-2025 inclusive are given third and final reading to be signed by the mayor and clerk under the corporate seal.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor? None opposed, that is carried. That then takes us to the confirmatory bylaw. Councillor Noyes, you have the first and second reading.
Yes, moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Dubanow, that bylaw number 64-2025 to confirm the actions of council at its council and committee meeting held June 9th, 2025, and its regular council meeting held June 23rd, 2025, is given first and second reading.
All those in favor? None opposed, that is carried. Councillor McDermott, third and final reading.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Flagg, that bylaw 64-2025 is given third and final reading to be signed by the mayor and clerk under the corporate seal.
Any questions or comments? There being none, all those in favor? And that is carried. Scheduling of meetings. Any meetings, Councillor Christensen?
Yes, Your Worship. Tomorrow at 4 o'clock, the Community Health Services Committee will meet. Not sure the location yet.
And is that at 4 o'clock?
4 o'clock.
So I should have mentioned at the outset, but I'll mention it now. We will be making a delegation to the Niagara Health Board of Trustees tomorrow. That's at 2:30. We're allowed 10 minutes, and apparently, according to their rules of governance, no questions asked. So we'll see. Any further meetings to be announced? Councillor Noyes?
There's a Stevensville downtown meeting tomorrow at 9 a.m. at the FINA insurance office, and there's a accessibility committee meeting on the 24th.
Is that tomorrow? That's tomorrow.
That's tomorrow too, yes.
And that's at what time?
at 4 PM.
Anyone else? Oh, Councillor Dubanow. Go ahead.
Yeah, Your Worship, it's not a town meeting, but I wanted to announce it anyway. The Community Living of Fort Erie has their annual general meeting this Wednesday on June 25th. I have 5 PM in the calendar here, but I have a feeling it probably won't start until 5:30, 6 o'clock-ish. And I just wanted to announce that because it's an important organization and this is an important meeting, so hopefully we see you there, Your Worship.
I will be there, and I believe the invitation says that 5 o'clock is the annual general meeting of community living, and then I think...
That's correct, and then we have the kind of the
5:30,
awards and
yes.
everything right after.
Right.
Thank you, Your
And
Worship.
that's at the Legion, the Branch 71. Yes, Fort Erie Legion. Okay, then let's go to Councillor Dubanow, my favorite resolution of all of these meetings.
And it's always great when the sun is still in the sky, Your Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Flagg, that council adjourns at 8:05 PM to reconvene into a regular meeting of council on July 21st, 2025.
All in favor? That is unanimous, as it usually is.
And Senny stayed for the whole meeting.